Brother Sedgwick. Good morning. This is Brother Bill from Antioch Baptist Church, actually from Grace, but this message is for Antioch. I think it sticks when we end up calling it. We want to try to remember the ones on their prayer list. They had a death this past week. We'll try to remember them, the people that it was for, and if they've came to the church, I think it was yesterday that they were supposed to have the funeral there. Pray for the ones that, there was a funeral Friday. Brother Robert was telling that it was just real sad. We'll remember them people there. I don't remember their names. And then a young lady called Monique. I call her a young lady. She's 50. Sweet girl. I've known her for a long time. But she passed away this past week also. And the Lord's taken a lot of people home. It's not so much as a sad thing because they left us, but they went home. It's not a sad thing. Amen. And we have to get in the right frame of mind. If they're Christians, they went home. And I want to leave it like that. Well, Brother Thornton has hammered a couple of thoughts into me this past week. I don't know if he thinks he's trying to lead my preaching one way or the other, but he did say that we should lead out with the Psalms. So we're going to read two different passages. I'm going to read Psalms 94, and then we're going to skip back to Revelations where the original thought should be from. Lord God, to whom vengeance belongeth, O God, to whom vengeance belongeth, show thyself. Lift up thyself, Thou judge of the earth, render a reward to the proud. Lord, how long shall the wicked triumph? How long shall they utter and speak hard things, and all the works of iniquity boast themselves? They break in pieces thy people, O Lord, afflict thine heritage. They slay the widow and I've got to get closer to it. Strangers and murderers and fatherless. Yet they say, the Lord shall not see, neither shall the God of Jacob regret it. Understand, ye brutish among the people, and ye fools, when you shall be wise. He that planteth the earth shall not, I'm just really having a hard time keeping up with it this morning. He planted the ear, shall not he hear? He that formed the eye, shall he not see? And that chasteneth the heathen, shall he not correct? He that teacheth man knowledge, shall not he know? The Lord knoweth the thoughts of man, that they are vanity. Blessed is the man whom thou chastest, O Lord, and teach him out of the law, that thou mayest give him rest from the days of adversity, until the pit be digged for the wicked. For the Lord will not cast off his people, neither will he forsake his inheritance. But judgment shall return unto righteousness, and all the upright in heart shall follow it. God's going to take care of the people that are picking on God's Christians. It's going to be just fine. And I've started reading these Psalms one a day or so and trying to pick out them. And I read through this one this morning. He's going to take care of the wicked. Now, right now, they're boasting and having their fun on him. They're picking on us, and y'all think y'all this, and the coronas came, and your God hadn't took care of you, and this will come, and that'll go. And they really don't even understand that God is going to come one day. I know it's been right at 1900 years since Jesus came and went back to heaven, and they still think that he's not going to come back. They've got this thing in their mind that it was just he was a good teacher, and then all it is just to be some good man said that, and religion is not. I know it's been 1900 years, but he's just as powerful today as he was when God said, let there be light. And it was. And I've heard them say that the sun wasn't made till the third day and couldn't figure out where the light came from. And if you read in Revelations, God and the sun are the light. It's obvious. But you got to start in Alpha to Omega, the beginning to the end of this Bible, before it'll all tie together. I want to get to Revelations 21, chapter 21, and I want to go to verse 2. And I kind of read off and on to the very end of it from right there. Give y'all time to get there. Well, it really doesn't matter. Y'all can watch it again or pause it. I don't know why I thought I had to wait on y'all. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And I'm going to carry on in a minute, but I wanted to stop just the magnitude of what John saw there. Staggered the mind. There were some things he wasn't allowed to write, but God told him to write this one. You write this down, son. This is to give y'all assurance that the holy city Jerusalem, and we're going to get into the measurements just because it is staggering in a minute. Well, there's nothing that man has built that can compare to that. He saw the holy city Jerusalem descending as a bride adorned for the husband. And I did a little reading up on that and studying it. And I remember my bride, the day we got married. And she was so pretty back then. And just so lovely. And she was, you know, she put on a little makeup, had her hair fixed up. She quite didn't recognize her. I just didn't recognize her from, I would have been happy with normal. But she wanted to do something special for me. And she got all dressed up and had that pretty dress on. And I just sit there and I go back and remember, and it's going to be that way forevermore. The wedding dress ain't coming off. The city adorned is just going to be just gorgeous. And we're going to go there if you trust and believe. We can go there. My wife, and I thought about that. I still think of her as that frail little 18-inch waist young girl that I married 30 years ago. She's not, but that's what I look at her as. And I tend to overshoot it sometimes when I tell her, here, help me pick this up. And she's like, I can't move that. Well, you used to do it. She said, you used to could have picked it up by yourself. And she reminds me that we're getting older. And the only reason I'm pointing that out is when we finally leave after the 1,000-year millennial reign, Bill's not going to be old. He's not going to have back problems, joint problems, weight problems, eye problems. I mean, we're just beat up with problems. Our body starts, and when you turn 40, Lord help you, it's just heading south from there. Like Sherman. I mean, it was just horrible. But that's not going to be. I got to thinking, Mama Bass done some of her best singing just before she passed from this life to the next. And there's some people that can just sing because. And she sang Amazing Grace for me one time that just, you could almost feel the Holy Spirit around you. I've had a few people say, yeah, it kind of cloudy, made a cloud in there, and you could see the Holy Spirit. I don't know about all that. But when she sang, it just was magnificent. She sang with the authority of God. She knew Him. She felt the power, and she didn't sing, she sung because she knew Him. Because there's an empty grave. Because He was her master. I mean, there's some wonderful people that sing. This morning at Grace, there was some singing that went on. The lady that done Amazing Grace thought she'd done just a horrible job, and she is just nervous, but I'm telling you right now, it was awesome. God was in it. It was just beautiful. And we sit there and we do things. I'm trying to think of his names. It's saying, one of them gospel singers that sung bass up till he died, and he says, as I get older, my voice gets better. And I've got it tuned. And just before we get it all figured out and we get everything ready, God takes us home. I have learned to control my temper. It took 40 years. Think about that. You got, what, 15 more to go? I've learned to keep my mouth shut. And I know y'all don't believe that. I know you don't believe it, but I can keep my mouth shut. Brother Jesse Johnson said he didn't think it was a filter between my mouth and my mind. There's not a filter there. Well, they put me on drugs one time and fit to do a surgery, and he said, yep, there's a filter, because, dude, you should have really just laid there and been quiet. It's irrelevant. But as I learn more and I get honed into, and it's like carving a head out of wood. I've sat there a bunch of different times and I've looked at a piece of wood and I start carving something for somebody, and sometimes I carve for God. Me and him sit down on a piece of wood, and whatever I see, we start whittling at it. When I start off, it doesn't look like it. When I chip it in, it starts to take form. And after you get the chipping done and you figure out where you want the ears and the eyes and the nose to be, you know, it slowly takes a picture, and it's starting to slowly be there. That's like us. How many times when you just got saved, thought of yourself as a light or not? Coarse, rugged, crude. You're saved. But as if, I can't imagine why the Lord even want to save me as a horrible person as I was. And I wasn't bad, I wasn't, but I was lost. Salvation is whenever you learn that you're lost, you get saved by trusting in Jesus Christ. And you start chipping at that block whenever you first get saved. I'm smarter than I was when I got saved. I've heard some people say that I shouldn't be preaching because of stuff I did beforehand. Well, there's a murderer that preached for Jesus. Saul of Tarsus, he had people put to death for the wrong reason. I've never killed anybody. I have killed a few cats. The Lord took them home, and it was my fault. I'm just being honest with you. But I want you to notice that the reason we're trying to better our lives, the reason preachers even get up behind the pulpit to make a point, to actually a little bit of theatricals, Brother Robert hollered out loud this morning to make a point, and he did. He got his point across. Is if you're going to tell somebody about their sins, you got to tell them in love. They're not going to listen to you. They're really not. But I just want to read for what awaits. Today I only wanted to show you just a few things, a glimmering sunshine. There's not even going to be a sun there. Just God, the Son, and the Father is going to be the light. Let's go to the number 6 is where I was dropped off reading. And he said unto me, it is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh. Pay close attention to that one word. Have you overcame, or do you want to? He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful, unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, the whoremongers, the sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. There's not going to be any of that there. There's not going to be anything. The first thing it said, the fearful. Have you got fear in your heart? Preacher told about his wife, Miss Ginger, scared of a snake. Well, they scare me too from the first shock of them. But then I'll pick them up and play with them, whether they're poisonous or not. I'm not scared of them. It doesn't bother me. But the shock of the initial shock, that's not fear, that's shock. When you get into a car wreck or you get an accident and break a bone or something, the initial shock is one thing. But then you're going to, this arm's going to rot off, I'm going to do that. Don't fear. If you trust your Lord Jesus, he's got you in all things. Mental, physical, and spiritual. He's got you. He can take care of you. I have a problem with panic attacks sometimes, and I take care of 90% of them with gospel singing. And if you come in my shop and I'm singing Amazing Grace, I suggest you just leave. It's probably not going to be a good day. I'm just picking. Y'all come on in. And we're going to start back on 9 reading. And there came out of me one of the 7, and there came out unto me, that's much better, of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in spirit to a great and high mountain, and shewed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, and having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like unto a jasper stone, clear as a crystal. And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels. And the names written in, let me refocus my glasses. And the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. On the east 3 gates, and on the north 3 gates, and on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. Now I'm just from the south. I'm going to say the south gates are going to be prettier than the rest of them. And the wall of that city had 12 foundations. And then the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Each one of these things, each one of those gates was representation of the 12. You see it, 12. And then he says the 12 foundations are built upon the 12 disciples. And those 12 different stones are jasper, sapphire, chaldoni. The 4th was emerald. The 5th was stardust, sardonyx. Stardust is a 6th. The 7th is charolite. The 8th is beryl. The 9th is topaz. The 10th is sarphius. The 11th is juncuth. The 12th is amethyst. Now we do not know which apostle got which color or which stone. I've had them actually seen the stones before, seen it looked it up on the internet, which in there, and that's not exactly going to be the color. The walls are a pure jasper, and I've seen jasper, but not crystal clear. I've seen gold, it's yellow. I've seen gold with copper in it. It's kind of a reddish gold. I've seen all different kinds of gold. But the gold the street is going to be made out of is going to be pure gold, likened to a clear crystal. I mean, I just can't imagine. The jasper walls like crystal and shine with that yellow. It's just going to be magnificent. And it's adorned. It's been set up like Christmas time, for we do, around here, and those little pieces of green, pearls and strings of, I just can't imagine. I cannot imagine the beauty to behold. I want to get right down to the size of the city. I'm going to back up. Let's go to 15. And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city and the gates thereof and the wall thereof. I don't know if he was there because it's already been built. He's going to measure it. He's thinking that he's going to check God's work. Or it's just proof that that's how big that rascal was. Instead of just words, he got a guy out there to show him how big this city was. And the city lieth foursquare. Now I've got that in my mind. Each corner was a different size, and the streets was like an X or meandering. And I can't imagine how the city is. I want you to wrap your mind around it. I don't know if it's got them onion top buildings like it did at old, or God done something totally new. God made this, not made by hand, not by us, not by man. We didn't do anything. Just imagine the rooftops and the pinnacles on each one of those buildings. He said the city lieth foursquare, and the length as the large of the breadth, and he measured the city with a reed 12,000 furlongs, which is about 1,400 miles. The length and the breadth and the height of the city. If you imagine a square, it didn't go any further than 1,400 miles up. It wasn't a block. It wasn't a square. It was a city that the tallest peak in it was 1,400 miles up. I don't know if I wanted to fall out of it now, but I could just see us. We're not walking through that city. We're going to literally transport through that city or fly. And it's just going to be, you can go and see the corbels. I've walked down through New Orleans and seen a lot of the architect down there that I want to get a closer look at. Some of the different statues and stuff. But I can just imagine statues of Jesus. That's all. Maybe a statue of God. We'll actually see him face to face. There's going to be nothing else up there but us and him. No evil, no wicked. No, none of those wicked things can even enter in. 1,400 miles long, wide, and tall. And there's a fence around it. A wall, if you will. 200, was it 200 feet? Let me check. The wall is 200 feet thick. That's massive. That is a massive wall. Now we look at the pyramids and we wonder, and it took them hundreds of years to build that. God's had 2,000 years to build that city. If not 6. He may have started on it whenever all this started, because everything it was from Alpha to Omega was planned in the beginning, and it's going to end. This is going to be the breath of it. Whenever this Omega is done, like he said in the very beginning, from there, when this is it, it's going to be just you and me. It's going to be us, Christians. That holy city on that new earth and that new heaven. Going to have that new car smell. It's going to be magnificent. It's never going to go away. Adorned like a bride for their husband. It's going to be decorated. There's not going to be a bunch of gay people up there trying to decorate it. They do a lot better than me. But up there, the decorator's already been done. He's already been hired and paid. I thought of this past week. Let me step out into a side pocket just for a second. The different hats my Lord wears. I was looking at some roses and dogwood flowers and some feathered jasmines, and my God's an artist. They put my elbow back together, and that elbow, the fake elbow, fell out and broke loose, and they said, oh, you're just going to have to do without it, and it grew back. My God is a doctor. Think about the hats. The trees he grew, he's a logger. He knows. He's a pupwood hauler. My God has walked in our sandals. He's a carpenter. I thought about that. They ain't got nothing but bricks and mostly logs over there. When that word carpenter kind of encompasses masons, whittling, carving, whoever built the house, built the roof. He didn't hang the chandelier. I'm pretty sure there wasn't a light. He did put the candlesticks in there. And I'm just imagining my God's a carpenter. He's an electrician. He is an air conditioner repair guy. Now, one old guy tried to tell me, he says, you know, he crawled under his van and he put his hands on the transmission, and the Lord healed his transmission. I don't have any doubt what God could do there. The likelihood, my God can do anything. He's a magician. Point I was trying to get to. He can just do all kind of wonderful magic, if you will. I've seen my daughters watch Doctor Strange on the little television, and he can do different motions and say spells. My God created this universe with a word. Spoken. He has created worlds inside of worlds by just thinking about it. We cannot even imagine the microscopic world or the quantum realm that we can't see. If you go down small enough, you can see the dust in the air. One of the things I was selling vacuum cleaners years ago, and one of the tricks that they wanted us to do is get this really, 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 really bright light. And if you shine it, a really bright light, you can see dust that's in the air right now that we're breathing in. And we're swallowing it because it gets stuck in the saliva in your mouth. The reason your nose stays wet on the inside is so to stick to it and the impurities won't go inside your lungs and you choke and cough and hack it out. God knew what he was doing. But this body won't be there. We're going to have a new body when we get there. The city's lights is one we're going to start on 22. And I saw no temple there, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need for the sun, neither the moon, to shine in it. For the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor up into it, and the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there. and they shall bring the glory and honor of the nations unto it. We're not worthy, even when we get there. We have done nothing. Everything we can do, and I wanted to try the part where we take the crowns and throw it at Jesus' feet. Everything that we've ever done, and He rewards us for standing when nobody else would stand, or preaching when there wasn't just 3 or 4 people here. And you felt like you was doing a horrible job, but you're just doing what God tell you to. The ones that took stripes, Peter and Paul and Silas, whichever one it was in the prison, singing at midnight. There's going to be a award ceremony in heaven. Probably going to take 1,000,000 years, but I'm just saying, it's going to be awesome. But they're going to take all those awards, for we are not worthy. I have done nothing to warrant my wife's love and affection towards me. Let alone what God has meant to me through these years. I love my wife, but not near about how God loves me. We're not worthy. And we're going to toss all of this at Jesus' feet, for He's worthy. Why would He come to this world after how this nation, let's not talk about the world, let's talk about something we know. This nation has fallen from grace. People don't even know who Jesus was. I've met one boy that's never been to church in my lifetime, and he didn't know who Jesus even was. In this country. In this country that was built on church and believing in God. The 10 Commandments used to mean something. We have fallen far from God. We have taught our kids to fall even farther away. It's a miracle this country hadn't fallen and God just knocked the blocks out from under it. We're still arrogant, rude, and obnoxious. There's a church that whenever the preacher goes by a statue, he drops to his knees and he prays. Now, I'm not picking on them. They walk past a cross, crucifix, and they'll stop and they'll say a little prayer. And I like fell over him because he didn't have no tail lights on, and I didn't see no brake lights, and I just tripped over him. And like, dude, if you're going to stop every time we do this, time we get around to the front of this, let's just walk down the middle next time and not in front of all these crosses, and I think we'd get there quicker. But anyway, they have more respect for that church house than what we do. It's not the church house. It's the respect for God we don't have. We act out and show out. If we'd have run in church, my grandmother would have tore our hind end up. There's no respect for the preacher. There's no respect for God, let alone that. And they just blurt out absurdities and just pure violent evil towards God. There ain't no such thing as God. And there's proof all around it. Speaking to a preacher friend of mine yesterday, Steele, oh my Lord, I remember his last name, Steele, his name is Steele. Brother Steele, we're talking about if you had to talk to somebody about the Lord. I started one time, and I know I'm getting kind of lengthy, but I want you to understand that every day God blesses me with someone new to talk and discuss. Years ago, I was in college, and we got a professor that was trying to get me to agree that we came from monkeys. And I told him I would put it on the test that way, but as a young man, I was very outspoken, if you will. And I let him know quick that I don't believe that. But I will put it on the paper to get a test because that's the answer he wants. But I don't believe we came from a monkey. And he says, well, I got an idea. Why don't you come up here and we'll have a debate? And I says, I can't do that today, but I will do it on a Thursday. You know, we had that class only once a week. And next Thursday, get here, and he says, I know, you're going to drag that old Bible up here. And I thought to myself, if you don't believe the Bible, that's a waste of time, isn't it? I was going to prove to him that we didn't come from a monkey using his anatomy and physiology book, which, by the way, is so full of holes. I mean, I give up writing things down after like 10 or 20 pages of, well, that can't be true because over here is what you said. Man cannot agree to anything with the knowledge of God just blowing them out of the water. We get the next Thursday there, and he had 2 pulpits up there, and we were discussing the monkey situation. And he kept on, and he made his spiel, and I was quiet and gave him peace, and I reverenced him, and I just stood there, and I didn't cross my arms. I more or less just stood at parade rest. You know how military guys just tend to fall back into their military standards, and I let him speak. And he got everything he said about the DNA and this, that, and the other. And I says, first of all, I'd like to point out that everything on this planet is 98.6% DNA away from being human. There's only the last 3 or 4 cents that makes any difference, so you can't use that. And he agreed. He said, well, you know, the monkeys have facial features. I said, monkeys have fur and not hair. We have hair. There's a difference between fur and hair. And I said, so you can't use that one. And he went to another one. I said, monkeys can't breathe except in repetition. They must breathe in and then out, and then in and out, and in and out. I can decide to hold my breath. That monkey cannot. He can speed that succession up or slow it down. But he cannot stop it and hold it. No way to control his breath. Scared of swimming, cannot swim because of that. Has no fat. I like this part. Women have more fat than men. Layers of it. And I did point that out to all them young ladies there. And I said, first of all, monkeys ain't got no fat. They ain't got no hair. They ain't got no the DNA is just, that's just ludicrous. Went up and down. I said, and I asked a friend of mine up in upper part of Mississippi, I want to call it State or one of them colleges up there. I forget now. It's been so long ago. I said, well, you're a veterinarian and you teach veterinary school. And I says, what animal would have been more likely what we would evolve from compared to the actual DNA traits and markers? Not just because we look like a monkey. Now, I've seen a couple babies that look like a monkey, but that didn't mean they came from monkey. They were just ugly babies. And they grew out of it, thank God. And some of them did. And we got there, and he said, we're more likely to have came from hippopotamus. And I just blew my mind. He said they got hair. They got the layers of the fat. They got teeth like we do instead of fangs. It's like dogs. He says, and they've got, you know, just everything we didn't have, so they can take a deep breath and then go into water. And I've seen them claim that these women have baby births in water. And they have before. We're more likely have came from the hippopotamus. And we kept on going. He even drug corn into it. He says, well, we've got up there at this university, called it, and he said, we can make a kernel of corn, and you can't tell the difference. I said, that's right. I said, but when you put it in the dirt, will it grow? The dead seed come alive, even in the littlest thing. Finally, after about 45 minutes of discussing what God has actually done on this planet, things that He done. Let me throw one more in there about that lamb that they cloned. I thought clone, I said, well, they broke all that up. Lord, I don't know what it is. He said, just read it, son. Don't go see what it's about. So I went and I read it. They took an egg out of a sheep. They took some DNA material and had it synthesized into basically a fertilization paste. They rubbed it on the egg and stuck it back in the sheep, and she became pregnant. Now look, if you're going to impress me, get your own dirt. Now it's just the way I'm going to look at it. You haven't created nothing if you're using stuff that we've done. You start with nothing like God did, and you create it. It cannot be done. We cannot do it. It is impossible. I don't care if you think this string theory that we come, that there's like 100,000 variations of this earth, and that's just ludicrous. We are here. This is it. What Satan has done is allowed all this knowledge and wisdom to confound us. It takes more faith to believe in this trash than it does that there's an almighty God puts all that to rest. You only have to understand that Jesus Christ is the only begotten Son of God. The only thing that's a constant through this Bible is God the Father. You've got to believe that He's coming again. There's a city going to be there for those that have put away fearfulness, put away unbelief, abominable, murderers, whoremongers, sorcerers, idolaters, all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. There's a great city, really built. It's really, truly there. Just because you can't see it, don't make it real, not that we don't believe it. I believe in the atoms and stuff on things. It's just, the doctors and the sciences of this world, every time they pick out something new, they just prove to me that God is real. There's a law out there that means everything will stick together. They call it the God particle. And without that thing, I think we discussed this here a couple of weeks ago, that this entire thing would fly apart. The earth, the air. They had it one time in the 30s that was afraid if a rocket got so hot and so high into the stratosphere where there's more hydrogen than there is anything else, that it bust into flames. It did. Air should burn all on its own. It's got oxygen, hydrogen. It's got everything it needs. It's got, every water, H2O. There we go. Let's go ahead and say it like that. It's got everything it needs to burn. We're breathing it. Water will put out a fire. H2O is water. It's got everything it needs to burn, but yet it puts out fires. And the amazing ability the scientists have, they still ain't figured that out. They can break it, pull the hydrogen out of it, use the oxygen to make it burn, and it turns back into water after it goes through the process. Miracles on this planet. They're given to, it evolved. I tend to believe. What harm has it done that I believe that we have a great and almighty God? I haven't lost a thing. If we get to the end of the way, and I've given my whole heart to believing in God, if there is nothing, and I'm saying if and doubting it seriously, what have I lost? But what if I'm right and you're wrong? What have you lost? Are you willing to bet everything to be outside of that city, burning in hellfire in that lake and brimstone forever and ever? The smoke will ascend to that. Just like there's a beautiful city, there is a lake of fire where death, hell, and the grave is cast into. And we'll either do it or won't do it. There is no purgatory. Nothing I can do can help you. Nothing I can do can even help me. There's nothing we can do. We don't deserve it. We have a loving and a graceful and our God wears so many hats. Jesus is my closest and dearest friend. I hope that this hasn't been too long and drug out. And I tried not to go to hollering and screaming today. I just wanted to show you the beautiful city and sit there and see just how magnificent. I see bricks. Some people see one solid slab of asphalt. It depends on how. I can just see the little cobblestones made out of gold, crystal clear, and I can see the walls, be able to see through it. And I can see like rocks are here. God's an artist. And some rocks have grain. It runs different way. And I can just see that wall with grain in it. He made it. He made the rocks here. He can make it there. You sit down here and I call myself being an artist and create different things. But all I do is I take a deer antler and I'll take a bit of a stick that God has shaped. And somebody said, "You make that walking stick?" And I said, "No, sir, I just put it together." That's all I've done. God did the creating. Thank you. I appreciate this. This will be the message. Thank you.